Society trains you from the moment you are born to follow rules that keep you predictable, compliant, and easy to manage. But Machiavelli teaches that the individuals who rise above the masses understand that not all rules deserve obedience, and some must be broken with intelligence, timing, and precision to build real power, real independence, and real identity. Society gives you a script and demands you act it out without questioning its purpose. But the people who rewrite their lives are the ones who stop accepting the script and begin crafting their own. This first dark lesson dismantles the illusion that obeying everything makes you a good person or a successful one, because obedience alone creates a quiet, invisible life, while power, influence, and freedom emerge only when you strategically violate the expectations designed to keep you small. Machiavelli understood that most people never question the forces shaping their behavior, because the comfort of conformity feels safer than the uncertainty of independence. But he also knew that history never remembers the obedient crowd, because history is shaped by the few who dare to step outside the lines and force the world to adjust to their will. You are taught to blend in, to not stand out too much, to not ask for too much, and to not challenge the boundaries around you. But the paradox is that society secretly admires the ones who break these unwritten rules, because deep inside everyone wishes they had the courage to live boldly instead of quietly. People fear breaking rules not because the rules are moral or meaningful, but because the consequences of disapproval terrify them more than the consequences of living a life half expressed. But Machiavelli exposes that fear as the first prison you must escape if you wish to create anything extraordinary. Every powerful figure in history, leaders, creators, innovators, thinkers, had to abandon society's expectation of obedience, not by becoming reckless, but by becoming intentional. And this is the difference that defines Machiavelli's philosophy, because reckless rebellion destroys, while calculated disobedience transforms. To break a rule intelligently, you must first uncover who benefits from the rule and who is weakened by it. And Machiavelli insists that the strongest individuals study the structure of power before acting, because power is not chaos but architecture. Many rules are not designed for fairness, but for control. And when you live without analyzing the motivations behind these rules, you become a silent participant in your own limitation. Society teaches you to wait for permission before attempting something bold. But permission never comes when your ambition threatens someone else's comfort. So Machiavelli's first lesson is to stop waiting for acceptance and begin moving with purpose, even when others misunderstand or criticize your path. The criticism itself becomes a sign that you are doing something significant, because people only condemn what they secretly fear or envy. This world tells you to keep your head down, avoid risk, follow the standard path, and hope that life rewards your patience. But Machiavelli teaches that the world rarely rewards patience without pressure, because systems are designed to benefit those who actively push the boundaries rather than those who politely remain within them. You must recognize that society is not a neutral environment, but a competitive arena where everyone is trying to protect their own interests. And the moment you decide to rise, you will challenge the comfort of those who depend on your silence. That discomfort is not a signal to stop, but a signal that your evolution has begun, because no transformation happens without resistance. Machiavelli emphasizes that rule breaking is not the goal, but the mechanism that allows you to escape the invisible chains that influence your decisions without your awareness. You must understand that there are two types of rules. Society loves to talk about morality, kindness, fairness, and virtue, but Machiavelli reveals a truth most people avoid admitting because it makes them uncomfortable. And that truth is that the world is not shaped by those who follow every moral expectation, but by those who understand when morality is genuine and when morality is a performance used as a tool of influence, persuasion, and control. People pretend morality guides their actions, but in reality, power, survival, and advantage quietly guide them more than they will ever confess. This is not a rejection of ethics, but an acknowledgement that many so-called rules of morality are selectively applied depending on who benefits. And Machiavelli teaches that the powerful understand this double standard, while the powerless believe morality functions the same for everyone. The second dangerous rule of society you must break is the rule that says you must always appear morally perfect, because perfection invites exploitation, unrealistic expectations, and a loss of freedom, while strategic imperfection gives you room to maneuver, adapt, grow, and protect your interests in a world where others constantly guard their own. Most people live under the illusion that being good guarantees good treatment. But Machiavelli shows that goodness without strength invites predators who take advantage of your predictability. Because predictable people are easy to manipulate, easy to guilt, and easy to control. Society tells you to be endlessly selfless, endlessly forgiving, endlessly agreeable, and endlessly available, but these traits, when used without boundaries, become tools others use to drain your energy, time, and potential. People will ask you to be perfect only because your perfection benefits them, not because it elevates you. And Machiavelli's dark lesson is that you must learn when morality is used as genuine human principle, and when it is used as a chain disguised as virtue. If you do not understand this distinction, you will live your entire life following standards that others themselves never follow in private, and you will wonder why people who appear less kind or less virtuous often rise faster, build more, and influence more than those who cling to a rigid idea of goodness. Machiavelli explains that power and morality are not enemies, but they are partners only when you understand how the world truly functions, instead of how society pretends it functions. You should be moral by choice, not by force. You should be kind with intention, not compulsion. You should be virtuous where it matters, not in the places where virtue turns into self-destruction. Society demands moral perfection because it fears individuals who are not bound by predictable expectations. But the strongest people maintain an inner moral compass while refusing to be manipulated by superficial moral pressure. They choose their principles consciously instead of blindly obeying the moral rules others use to appear superior, while privately violating those same standards whenever it benefits them. Machiavelli warns that if you try to meet every moral demand society places on you, you will lose your authenticity, your power, your self-respect, and your ability to take decisive action when action is necessary. The people who rise in life are not cruel, but they are not naive. They know when a person's moral judgment is genuine and when morality is being used as a strategy to shame, weaken, or control. Machiavelli teaches that guilt is one of the most common weapons used by society to keep individuals compliant. People will use morality to make you feel guilty for setting boundaries, guilty for prioritizing your dreams, guilty for letting go of toxic relationships, guilty for not sacrificing your future to protect their comfort. If you allow guilt to dictate your actions, your life stops belonging to you and becomes property of whoever manipulates your conscience most effectively. You must recognize that protecting you. From childhood, you are trained to fear your own ambition, because an ambitious person is unpredictable, powerful, and difficult to control. And Machiavelli reveals that society does not suppress ambition to protect your well-being, but to protect the comfort of those who benefit from your hesitation, self-doubt, and silence. The third dangerous rule of society you must break is the rule that says ambition is selfish, dangerous, arrogant, or immoral, because this idea is designed to keep you small enough to never threaten the authority of those who expect you to remain beneath them. Ambition is not dangerous, but suppressed ambition is, because suppressed ambition turns into resentment, regret, frustration, bitterness, and a quiet sense of failure that haunts people for their entire lives. Machiavelli teaches that ambition is the engine of human evolution, the fire of greatness, and the force that transforms a life from ordinary to legendary. And if you fear your own ambition, you surrender the greatest tool you have for shaping your destiny. Most people do not reject ambition because they are humble. They reject ambition because they are afraid others will criticize them, misunderstand them, or judge them. Society teaches you that wanting more is wrong, that pursuing power is wrong, that reaching higher than others is wrong, and that standing above the crowd is a violation of some invisible moral code. But Machiavelli dismantles this illusion by showing that the very people who condemn ambition publicly pursue it aggressively in private. They shame you for wanting what they themselves desire, because your ambition threatens the hierarchy they depend on. If you rise, they lose their advantage. If you grow, they lose their dominance. If you evolve, they lose control. So society praises modesty, not because modesty is inherently virtuous, but because modesty keeps you manageable. Ambition is portrayed as a sin only when it belongs to someone who is climbing, never when it belongs to someone already at the top. When a powerful person expands their empire, they call it leadership, vision, progress, or success. When someone beneath them attempts the same, society suddenly calls it arrogance, selfishness, or overreaching. This double standard exists because ambition in the powerful reinforces the existing hierarchy, while ambition in the lower ranks threatens to disrupt it. Machiavelli teaches that the world is not uncomfortable with ambition itself. It is uncomfortable with ambitious people who cannot be controlled. Therefore, the moment you accept the label of too ambitious, you unconsciously accept your place below others, and you begin shrinking your dreams to make others comfortable. You must break the rule that says ambition is shameful, because nothing in your life grows without the desire to expand, improve, evolve, and conquer new territory. Ambition is not only about career or wealth. It is ambition to improve yourself, to elevate your thinking, to escape mediocrity, to build a life with meaning, to fulfill your potential, to rise above the limitations placed on you. Without ambition, humans stagnate. Without ambition, civilizations collapse. Without ambition, innovation dies, creativity dies, leadership dies, and purpose dies. The most dangerous thing society ever taught you is that staying small makes you moral because it convinces you to suppress the most natural, powerful force inside you. Machiavelli explains that your ambition is not the enemy. The enemy is the fear that society implants into you, the fear that others will judge your desire for greatness, the fear that you will fail publicly, the fear that success will isolate you, the fear that aiming high puts a target on your back. But every person who has ever achieved anything extraordinary had to confront these fears and move forward anyway, because progress requires courage, not permission. Your ambition is a signal from your deeper self calling you toward the life. From the day you begin interacting with the world, society quietly shapes your behavior to become predictable, because predictable individuals are the easiest to influence, manipulate, and restrain. And Machiavelli reveals that predictability is the silent enemy of power. When your thoughts, reactions, emotions, and choices can be anticipated, others gain control over your path without you ever realizing you surrendered that control. The fourth dangerous rule of society you must break is the rule that says you must always be consistent, straightforward, transparent, and easily readable, because these expectations are designed not to empower you, but to make you manageable. People often disguise this expectation as morality, honesty, or loyalty, but Machiavelli exposes it as a subtle form of control meant to keep you behaving in ways that serve others more than yourself. A predictable person becomes a tool in someone else's strategy, while an unpredictable person becomes a force they must respect. Predictability makes you comfortable to others, but it makes you powerless. When people know how you will react, they know how to manipulate those reactions. When they know your weaknesses, they know where to press. When they know your goals, they know how to block or distract you. When they know what engages you, they know how to provoke you. Society teaches you to share everything, to be emotionally open, mentally transparent, socially available, and easy to read. But Machiavelli warns that oversharing is one of the fastest ways to give away power, because information about you is ammunition in the hands of others. The people who rise in this world maintain a level of strategic privacy, emotional discipline, and behavioral unpredictability, because mystery protects you while transparency exposes you. You must break the rule that tells you to always be yourself. In the simplistic way society uses the phrase, because this idea pressures you to show every emotion, every thought, every frustration, and every impulse without filtering for strength or strategy. Machiavelli teaches that being yourself does not mean being unfiltered. It means being self-aware enough to choose which parts of yourself to reveal, which to contain, and which to evolve. True power comes from controlling your reactions, not exposing them. When society tells you to be emotionally expressive at all times, it is often encouraging you to abandon self-mastery in the name of honesty. But honesty without control creates chaos in your relationships, your reputation, and your goals. The world respects those who can control their inner world, because emotional stability demonstrates discipline, and discipline commands influence. Predictability is a weakness, because it removes your ability to surprise, adapt, and dominate your environment. Machiavelli explains that the strongest leaders, creators, and thinkers operate with flexibility, adjusting their behavior based on the demands of the moment. They know when to be silent, when to speak, when to retreat, when to confront, when to adapt, and when to disrupt. Predictable people cannot do this because they are trapped in rigid patterns society taught them, patterns that benefit others far more than themselves. People say, "I know how you'll react," as if it is a compliment, but in Machiavellian philosophy, it is an insult, because it means you have become so emotionally consistent that you no longer possess strategic autonomy. Society wants you to be predictable, so you never become a threat. Predictable employees never challenge the system. Predictable friends never outgrow the circle. Predictable citizens never question authority. Predictable individuals never think independently. You must break the rule that says you must remain the same person others expect you to be. Growth disrupts predictability. Evolution disrupts predictability. Ambition disrupts predictability. When you change, people become uncomfortable. Society constantly warns you about being alone, tells you isolation is dangerous, insists you always need a group, a circle, a crowd, or a community to validate your actions and decisions. But Machiavelli reveals that this rule exists not for your benefit, but because solitude produces individuals who cannot be controlled, manipulated, or pressured by the collective. The fifth dangerous rule of society you must break is the rule that tells you to fear being alone, because solitude is the birthplace of clarity, ambition, identity, self-respect, and mental strength. When you are constantly surrounded by voices, opinions, expectations, noise, and emotional demands, you lose the ability to hear your own voice, to understand your own desires, and to build a mind that is unshaken by the world's chaos. Machiavelli teaches that powerful individuals intentionally withdraw when needed because they know that solitude purifies their purpose and strengthens their decision-making in ways company never can. Most people avoid solitude not because solitude is painful, but because it forces them to confront themselves without distraction. When you are alone, you see your fears clearly, your insecurities clearly, your potential clearly, your weaknesses clearly, and your dreams clearly. And society does not want you developing that level of self-awareness, because self-aware individuals become unstoppable. People who know themselves cannot be swayed by guilt, forced by pressure, or weakened by manipulation. Machiavelli explains that society encourages constant social engagement, because people who never spend time alone remain mentally dependent on external validation. And the more dependent you are on validation, the easier you are to control. A person who fears solitude becomes a person who fears disapproval. A person who fears disapproval becomes a person who obeys without questioning. A person who obeys without questioning becomes a perfect follower in a system designed to exploit their loyalty. You must break the rule that says isolation is failure, because some of the most powerful transformations of your life will happen in seasons of solitude. Solitude is not loneliness. Loneliness is emptiness. Solitude is power. Loneliness is the absence of others. Solitude is the presence of yourself. In the end, the world is not controlled by the loudest voices or the largest crowds, but by the individuals who dare to think independently, act decisively, and refuse to bow before the invisible rules that society quietly imposes. Machiavelli understood a timeless truth. A person who follows every rule that the world creates will eventually lose themselves. But a person who learns which rules to break becomes unstoppable. Your greatest power is not in conforming, but in choosing your own strategy, your own principles, and your own path. Every step you take towards self-mastery disconnects you from the expectations that once chained you. Every decision you make with clarity and courage reshapes your destiny, and every rule you break with wisdom, not recklessness, moves you one level higher in strength, intelligence, and personal freedom. These lessons are not just ideas, they are invitations. Invitations to rise above your own hesitation, to silence the internal voice that tells you to shrink, to stop apologizing for being ambitious, and to begin living like someone who understands their worth. The world respects clarity, it respects power, it respects people who are not afraid to take the uncomfortable path that leads to greatness. So let this be your moment, the moment you choose to stop living by the limits others created, and instead live by the vision you build. Because the truth is simple, the world bends for those who refuse to bend themselves. And once you begin to shape your own rules, your own strategy, and your own identity, you become the kind of person Machiavelli believed could change the course of their life, not someday, but starting right now.